الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على النبي المصطفى وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على دربه واقتفى. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters, we are still talking about Palestine, the complete narrative. And we came to the point when we started our first connection as Muslims to or in Palestine. We said the first connection actually was almost around the year 614 CE, or between 614 and 618 CE. And it was the great event when the Persians defeated the Romans. And we have seen how the Muslim community in Medina, or in Mecca, was very sad because the Romans lost that war for the benefit of the Persians. But I want to go back again today and compare between the Jews and the Muslims. We have seen the Muslim side, how Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was debating with the people of Quraysh, and how he was even very sad for that. And we explained that as it was said in Surah Ar-Rum, that Muslim hoped that it will come the day when the Romans are going to defeat the Persian and gain victory on them. On the other side, the Jewish people at that time actually sided with the Persian Empire against the Romans. And we said those people who were most likely living in Galilee and scattered in the territories of Palestine, in Syria, in Asham, they gathered together and they made that kind of alliance and became the allies to the Persian people. When the Persians invaded Jerusalem, which was called, by the way, at that time, the Romans called Jerusalem Ilya. So if you hear the word Ilya, that was the name of Jerusalem that was given to it by the Romans. So when they invaded Ilya or Jerusalem, the Persians, with the help of the Jews, destroyed that church of resurrection. And we know this is the most important point for the Christian people in Jerusalem at that time, until today. And also they even went ahead and destroyed a lot of the churches that existed there. And you can see what's going on nowadays in Gaza. They destroyed the churches too, and they bombed the Catholic Church that was even there under the watch of everyone. So, why did they do that? They were promised they would live, may have their own state in Palestine after that. But as soon as the Persians entered and invaded Jerusalem, they did not fulfill their promise. They know those people has been always people of problems, troublemakers. They were always making that revolt against the people who used to govern them, so they did not fulfill their promise to the Jewish people. More than this, they imposed very, very high taxes on them. Then we said the second connection, this is just a comparison between the situation of the Muslim community and the Jewish people. SubhanAllah, the second connection we said when the Prophet ﷺ traveled to Jerusalem. And the most important thing, we started from this point because we understand that at that time, it was the best prayer ever that happened on earth, with the best believer ever that has been created on earth, with the best imam ever. He was the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ leading 124,000 prophets in Jerusalem, in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. This is why I said it was the best prayers ever, with the best people ever, ma'mumin and the imam, and with the best imam ever on earth. So this is the second connection. Coming to the physical connection between us as Muslims and Jerusalem. It was actually, the Al-Isra and the Al-Mi'raj was almost the year 620 CE. Then we will move around the year 625, 627 CE, most likely 627. The Romans resumed Jerusalem and defeated Persia again. So now, the Muslims were hoping for that. They are now happy in Medina, in their places. But the Jewish people this time sided with the Romans. On the promise, at that time it was Heraclius, and Heraclius is very famous with the message that the Prophet ﷺ sent it to him with Abu Sufyan, if you remember the story. But at the same time, what I want to focus on here tonight is when the Romans defeated the Persian and resumed Jerusalem, they did not fulfill, or Heraclius especially, did not fulfill his promise to the Jewish people again and again. But why this time? Actually, it is said and narrated that Heraclius were really very interested to give them some kind of benefit, letting them into Jerusalem. But what happened? What happened Heraclius also was a kind of a priest. He was qas, he was not just a king. He was a very religious character in Christianity in the Roman Empire. So he wanted to fulfill his promise. But this time the priests who witnessed the invasion of the Persian and who saw the Jewish people helping the Persian to destroy the churches, especially the Church of Resurrection, they insisted on Heraclius, this will never happen. They can never enter Jerusalem anymore. They did so and so and so, and actually instead of fulfilling his promise, they said there was a kind of massacre against the Jewish people, to the extent that we used to say a few people, a few of them, I don't say a few, 10 or 20, I mean numbers, but they said after that massacre there was almost none of the Jewish people, not in Jerusalem, not in Palestine, and not in its territories. Most of them left to Egypt, were exiled to Egypt, or they kept hidden in Palestine, changing their names. Sometimes they may call themselves Christians. But anyway, this is to the point, 627, almost CE. Then the conflict began to happen. Wars broke out between the Muslims and the Romans now. We remember, and the Persian, of course, but the first, we all know that the Battle of Mu'tah, and the Muslims were not actually defeated, but they did not win the war by the grace of Allah, who appointed Khalid ibn al-Walid to get out of this great battle with a kind of winning, but it was not a real win. After that, was the Battle of Ajnadin. Ajnadin, that was the first battle between the Muslims and the Romans when the Muslims won. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the Muslim armies around the Arab Peninsula a lot of blessings and the barakat to open and invade many of the territories of Palestine. But in the year 635 CE, they could enter Damascus, Dimashq, Hims, Baalbek, those territories, but then in the year 636, all these armies scattered in the Arab Peninsula under the leadership and the direction of Omar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh. After Abu Bakr passed away, they focused on Jerusalem, which we said it was the year 636 or 638, around that. And they came to Jerusalem and they besieged Jerusalem, and this is the first physical connection with us as Muslims and the city of Jerusalem. And the story is a wonderful story. We said it was the time of Al-Khalifa Umar ibn al-Khattab. There was a patriarch who was in charge of Jerusalem. He was a Roman, he was a Christian, but he was a very smart and wise man. After he saw how the Muslim army are controlling the area, defeating the Romans and the Persian, and at the same time, he said, we cannot defend our city. After the battle or the siege continued for 4 months, brothers and sisters, 4 months. So he decided to surrender. But he was a very smart man. He insisted that the only Muslim leader to receive the keys of Jerusalem and to enter from the gates of Jerusalem has to be Umar ibn al-Khattab. He can never give that, or he could never give that to شرحبيل ibn Hasan radiallahu anhu, Amr ibn al-As, Khalid ibn al-Walid, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan even was there. But he insisted no one can take this. Why? They said because he knew exactly that Umar ibn al-Khattab was a great, just ruler. So he knew he can negotiate with him. He saw and he heard what happened to Jerusalem when the Persian invaded Jerusalem. He didn't like that to happen. And he was sure religiously, it was narrated from many ways, that he was sure that this is the leader who is going to really take open and get into Jerusalem. I mean Umar ibn al-Khattab. So after that, the story goes on, and Umar ibn al-Khattab came really to open Jerusalem, and we said he came on his camel, and he came of very humble garment that it was said, narrated, it had 17 patches in them. But Sophronius, the patriarch, did something else. I want to say there is nothing other than the relics of the Christian people. He took the true cross, which they thought it was the same cross that it was where the Jesus, peace be upon him, was crucified on. He took that true cross and some relics from the Church of Resurrection and sent it to Rome before he delivered the keys. Then he came to the negotiation, and he started the negotiation with Umar ibn al-Khattab before giving him the state. But Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu entered the state safely without fighting, and inshallah next time we are gonna narrate the story of Umar ibn al-Khattab receiving the keys of Jerusalem in details, and we are gonna read together the covenant of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu to the Christian people when he refused to take or destroy any of their churches. He never destroyed any of their crosses, and how they lived very safely under the leadership of the Muslim people in that city. And I want to finish by this word: that was the first time for that city to be free for every kind of religion, or it was the first time to witness that great religious tolerance. Only that time, from that time and on until the Jewish people controlled the place, it was available for the Christians, for the Jews, and for the Muslim. Everyone could practice his religion and rituals in Jerusalem and in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. اللهم يا رب العالمين انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في فلسطين. اللهم مد لهم يا رب العالمين في قدرك لهم بالنصر يا رب العالمين. اللهم يا رب العالمين احفظهم بحفظك وانصرهم بنصرك نصرا عزيزا مؤزرا. اللهم احفظهم بحفظك يا رب العالمين واربط على قلوبهم وثبت أقدامهم. اللهم يا رب العالمين يا أكرم الأكرمين احفظ أولادهم ونساءهم وشيوخهم ومجاهديهم يا رب العالمين. اللهم احفظهم بحفظك يا رب العالمين. اللهم اكلأهم برعايتك يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم كن لهم ولا تكن عليهم. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، وجزاكم الله خيرا.